1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Good. Okay. Good. The three of us just came here from Buffalo, where we had a press conference in a horrifying case, gut-wrenching. Scott Saracena, who was just rearrested on a rape previously released earlier this year. Due to New York's cashless bail laws, the judges didn't have discretion to keep Scott Saracena behind bars, despite a past criminal record of committing other rapes. The little offenses, the lower level crimes, too often also get forgotten in this conversation. And we're here in front of a Tops gas station where local news has been doing a good job in reporting a smash and grab that took place here, that in many parts of the state too often go unnoticed and unreported. People become numb to crime, as if there is a tolerance for it in a community. We often hear of particular types of crimes that get committed, and too often it's forgotten. That all across this state of New York, we have an issue where New Yorkers no longer feel safe on our streets. The last question that we received at our press conference just now in Buffalo was about how the number of people who are applying for concealed carry permits is increasing all throughout the state. What does that mean? What it means is that you have more New Yorkers who don't feel safe in this state. When New Yorkers leave this state because they say that they feel like if they were in another state, their money will go further, they will feel safer, they will live life freer. That is their breaking point in New York. And that is the reason why they are deciding to permanently leave New York. It's the duty of those who are in charge of this state to do more, to convince other New Yorkers who are hitting their breaking point that they should stay. There's a duty of those who are in this state capitol right now to have a special session to reverse certain pro-criminal laws that have been passed, to make sure that the streets once again belong to law-abiding New Yorkers again. We should be supporting our men and women in law enforcement. We should ensure that district attorneys and judges are enforcing the law. The cashless bail law should be repealed to give judges discretion to weigh dangerousness and flight risk, past criminal record, and seriousness of the offense. The parole board should be overhauled, changed from a majority vote to a unanimous vote. Victims should be given a say, especially when you see parole boards releasing cop killers and murderers and rapists. Victims and victim families have testimony that should be considered in making that decision. All of this and more is outlined as part of our Secure Our Streets plan for New York. It's at zeldinfornewyork.com/secure our streets. People in Rochester are seeing rising crime of all sorts, new highs, impacting that decision for that Rochester family as to whether or not their American dream is still a New York dream, whether their American dream is still a Rochester dream, or maybe they've hit that point where they believe that it's time to go down to the Carolinas or Tennessee or Texas or Florida or elsewhere. Now, people in power, do they just sit back, accept this as the new normal? Become numb to all of these offenses, more shocked that the media is reporting on a smash and grab here than the fact that this is happening itself. Well, we want to drive home that story that local media is making a point to report on. That's why we are here today. Because we can never become numb to any of this rising crime. When New Yorkers flee this state, they're not leaving for a few weeks or a few months. This is a permanent decision to leave New York. Additionally, on our Secure Our Streets plan for New York, we believe that we need to repeal the HALT Act. Our correctional officers, our other prison staff, even inmates are being assaulted more than before. The HALT Act went into effect on April 1st, and assaults on all of the above, from correctional officers to inmates, have all been skyrocketing. The HALT Act is to blame, and it should be repealed. Discovery law changes that went into effect need to be rolled back. My running mate, our state's next Lieutenant Governor, Allison Esposito, can speak to that impact on law enforcement, on district attorneys, as a consequence of that discovery law change that is now on the books in New York. We need to amend or raise the age. We need to repeal less is more. We should enact a law enforcement Bill of Rights. We should ensure that when you are closing down a prison, that part of that decision making is to decide what's going to be done with that transition. Because these buildings are falling into disrepair, abandoned, unused. Meanwhile, you have people on the streets who are homeless. You have people on the streets who actually have a home to go to. But oftentimes, because of mental illness, they are choosing to live a life on the streets. We have an issue in this state with drug abuse. Parents who have lost their loved ones due to heroin, fentanyl, crystal meth. Do you know, just a few weeks back, there were 2 Mexican cartel drug smugglers who were busted in New York with $1.2 million worth of crystal meth. And they were instantly released back out on the street on cashless bail. And this shouldn't be some kind of a red on blue, Republican on Democrat issue. This is about us as New Yorkers. Even the New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, says that there should be a special session to give judges discretion to weigh dangerousness. And I agree. Where's Kathy Hochul? Where is she? I've called on there to be at least 5 debates in this race. The first 2 requests that came in, I accepted. One came in from a CBS affiliate. Another one came in from Pix 11 with partners across this state. Kathy Hochul's accepted none of these debate requests. And in doing at least 5 debate requests, at least 2 should be down in the New York City media market. At least 1 should be in the Rochester or Buffalo media market. At least 1 should be in the Capital Region market. And at least 1 should be in the other markets. And I'd be happy to do a debate in every media market. I'd be happy to debate Kathy Hochul right here in Rochester to talk about crime in Rochester, to talk about all the issues that are important to Monroe County, families and communities. What better place to deal with issues like what brings us here today than to have that live debate right here in Rochester? And we should do it before the start of absentee voting. We should get it done before the start of early voting. Where's Kathy Hochul? Now, she's declared that this lifelong New Yorker, born and raised, only left New York for 4 years of my life, and I was to serve on active duty in the Army. She said that I was no longer a New Yorker because she disagrees on my positions on issues. But see, there are millions of other New Yorkers who feel the same way that I do on everything that I'm talking about here today, and everything that you'll hear about from the other 2 leaders who are with me. So are they supposed to leave as well? She said that I should get on a bus and go down to Florida. I should move to Florida. Should millions of other New Yorkers leave? New York leads the entire nation in population loss. We want New Yorkers to feel safe on our streets. And whether it is a rape in Buffalo of someone on the streets because of cashless bail, or it's a smash and grab, making the local news in the last 24 hours right here in Rochester. There's no crime too large or too small in a city that isn't big enough for a town or village that some might believe are too small enough to focus on. See, there's a duty on the part of those in Albany to take bold, courageous action, to make sure our streets belong to law-abiding citizens instead of criminals, to make sure the handcuffs are going on criminals instead of our criminal justice system. And that's why we're here today. Kathy Hochul, I have no idea where you are in this state. I'm not here to declare that you're no longer a New Yorker. I'm not here to call on you to get on a bus and leave the state. I'm here just to tell you to do your damn job. Alice Esposito is my running mate, our state's next lieutenant governor. She just retired from the NYPD, 25 years along a 40-year career in the NYPD. She was the commanding officer of the 70th Precinct in Brooklyn. She is a subject matter expert on criminal justice, on law enforcement, on securing our streets, and I'm honored that she accepted this challenge, this responsibility, this opportunity to help all of us take back New York streets. Alice Esposito.
Thank you, sir. Here we are again. Once again. Crime after crime after crime. Place after place after place. To demand that innocent New Yorkers be able to go about their business without falling victim to repeat offenders, to crimes that are happening over and over again, that by people that should be incarcerated. This is not an upstate, downstate issue. This is a New York issue. This is a New York issue. We did just come from Buffalo, where we were discussing the release of an individual, first on parole, and then by our cashless bail, reckless policy and laws, so that he could reoffend, so that we had another rape victim that he could add to his dossier. Another victim. Governor Hochul wants to talk about data points. Data points are victims. Data points are victims. Victims have families. It's like a ripple effect that goes through communities. This is unacceptable. This is not an upstate, downstate thing. This individual, after committing multiple offenses, multiple domestic rapes, multiple horrific acts, including his wife, where he kicked her so badly with his steel-toe boot, he opened her spleen, was released on parole. That's why we need to overhaul parole. That's why victim impact statements really need to be heard. That's why it needs to be unanimous. He's released on parole, and shockingly, he goes out to commit another domestic. He finds himself before a judge, and because it's not eligible for bail, he's released. He goes on to continue offending and released until he rapes another woman violently. We saw not too long ago a victim in New York City, Jose Alba, who went to work one day. That was his crime. And then he was approached by a career criminal who came behind the cashier area of the bodega and assaulted him, pulling him back in and throwing the elderly man against a wall, to the point where Jose Alba had to lash out in fear of his own life and ended up stabbing the perpetrator, the actual perpetrator. We saw not too long ago right here in Rochester an individual, Whitney Johnson, who at 1 o'clock in the morning in May, all of a sudden hears multiple gunfire. And her husband is screaming, "Get down, get down," and they're pulling 6 of their children from their beds to cover them. She comes out and there's 27 bullet holes in her home. And within those 2 days, 4 other homes riddled with bullets because of gang gunfire. She took to Facebook begging to leave innocent New Yorkers out of their gang wars. Begging. If you get a chance, look at it. Look at her face. Look at the fear. Look at the desperation. Calling on police and her elected officials to help. And it doesn't have to be this violent crime. These smash and grabs also have victims. Also have individuals that are suffering. Businesses are going down as a result of this. They're folding up and they're heading elsewhere as a result of this. And if, God forbid, they get in the way of these individuals who are only stealing property in these property crimes, they could get killed or hurt as well. Every crime has a victim. Victims deserve to be more than data points. Government's first priority is to protect its people, and this government is failing. This government is failing. Quality of life issues, smash and grabs, property crimes, low-level offenses have to be dealt with. We are shackling law enforcement. I served as a cop for almost 25 years. Throughout New York City in its cleanup effect, enforcing quality of life so that every New Yorker could feel safe, every New Yorker could walk the streets without stepping over bodies that are passed out from drug addiction, from alcohol abuse, or from crime. We cannot go numb to this. Our elected officials are failing us. Governor Hochul is failing. She'd rather go at Congressman Zeldin for not having the values of everyday New Yorkers, when I question if she has any values at all. She only puts power before people. And at the end of the day, all she wants is to pander to anyone that she might think would keep her in office. It's time we stand up as New Yorkers. I am sick of calling on Kathy Hochul to do the right thing. I am sick of calling on our elected officials in Albany to do the right thing and protect the people of the state of New York. I now call upon New Yorkers to stand with us, to stand in a common sense wave. This is not red, blue, or independent. This is people of all parties and people who have never voted before that are afraid. They're afraid for their children. They're afraid for their elderly parents. They're afraid for their businesses. And they have every right to be. It is our job to protect our people. And we will do that. Come January 1st, after the people speak on November 8th and say enough. We want our rights back, we want our freedoms back, and we want public safety back. Ladies and gentlemen, on November 8th, freedom and public safety are on the ballot. And we ask you to stand with us to send a clear message to Albany that we won't take this anymore. Thank you.
Joe Pinion here, Republican nominee for U.S. Senate, running against Chuck Schumer. And as Allison said, here we are again. We are here in a city that has been neglected by Charles Schumer, a career politician who has been in D.C. for 42 years, longer than I've been drawing breath on this earth. A city that's been neglected by a career politician in Joe Morelli, who does not represent the interests of the people that call Rochester home. Rochester now has to wear the unfortunate crown of having more people murdered per capita than Chicago, Illinois. Where is Joe Morelli? Where is Chuck Schumer? The answer is down in D.C. doing somebody else's bidding. Lee talked about the people who are signing up to get their permits to have a firearm within their constitutional rights. People want to act as if that's a bad thing, like there's an army of red hat wearing people who are coming with guns to a town near you. The real truth is that the fastest growing segment of new legal gun owners in this country are black women. Black women because it's their children who are getting shot. Black women because it's their living room that's been turned into a shooting gallery. black women because they are tired of living in a cocoon of fear. And Rochester, New York is a city that is trapped between the paralysis of poverty, trapped between the undying pain of crime and death. You look at what's happening with that three-strand cord of despair, the lack of education that we have, the lack of actual opportunity that drives the poverty, and the crime that's a result of both of it, all of these things. It starts with the fact that our children are getting less than they deserve. 60% of our children do not read at grade level in this state. Chuck Schumer has done nothing. Joe Morelli could care less. 1/3 of the black children that call this state home live in poverty. Chuck Schumer wants to kneel in kente cloth. Joe Morelli is still trying to run a poll to figure out what his opinion is. This city right now, 58% of the children that call this city home live in poverty. Where is the plan for that? I was 17 years old. I was at the Schuyler Center listening to the mayor of this city describe the problem that we have to this day quite clearly, that we are program rich and results poor. Every day, Chuck Schumer and Joe Morelli come to you with another program. What are the results? The results are that we still have a Kodak Theater, but Kodak is a shell of its former self, because the opportunity that used to live here is no longer in New York to be found. We're getting ready to go to Syracuse, New York, where they have the Carrier Dome Stadium, but Carrier itself, a shell of its former self, because the opportunity that was promised in this Empire State no longer lives here. Because people like Chuck Schumer, people like Joe Morelli have run the businesses out of town and the jobs that come along with it. We need jobs today like never before. This team can deliver jobs to the people that need them. We need educational opportunity and educational choice like never before. I know that Lee Zeldin supports school choice here in New York, and when I get to DC, I will guarantee that every single family has the right to school choice, that we will codify into the Constitution of this nation reading as a human right for every single child that calls this nation home. It is time for a wholesale departure from what has come before. Nothing changes unless something changes. And so we are asking you to do something you have maybe never done before, never thought about doing. Going to your local polling place and filling in a bubble next to a person with an R next to their name. But I promise you that it is not republicanism that is running through our blood and our veins. It is a commitment to people who have been neglected year after year, decade after decade, by career politicians who show up every election season to bribe you with your own money and then hold your dreams hostage in order to get your vote. Chuck Schumer is a professional hostage taker. Joe Morelli is a professional hostage taker. He tells the parents that you should not be concerned about the fact that your children cannot read because of the fact that they, in some ways, have a bigger boogeyman, a white supremacist, a Republican, that you should visit your ire on. And so we are asking you to join us in this mission to save our state, to give every New Yorker the America that was promised. That fateful words of Barbara Jordan, what the American people want is simple: an America as good as its promise. We are here to restore that promise. We are here to form a new covenant with the people of Rochester, New York. This is our moment to come together, to tell the peddlers of the vision to go away. And so I'm here to support Lee Zeldin. I'm here to stand with Allison Esposito. And I'm here encouraging you not to stand with us, but to stand up for yourself and choose righteousness in this election. Choose godliness in this election. Choose an America that finally gives you what you have due to yourselves. Thank you so much. God bless you, and here to take any questions you all may have.
Should we jump to gun laws?
Excuse me?
New gun laws in New York State?
Look, we should be passing laws that are focused on saving lives. When Chuck Schumer goes down there and says that they have a plan to reduce gun violence, and yet that plan only includes $300 million to secure our schools nationwide, let me give you a stat. My hometown of Yonkers, third largest city in this state, third largest school district in this state, 27,000 students. Average building in my hometown, 75 years old. The price tag to fix those crumbling schools, $2 billion. So how in the world do you think that a plan that has $300 million to secure our schools is not an actual con to make sure that you're trying to trick people into thinking you value their children? This country values two things. We value power and we value wealth. And the reason that children in Uvalde are being shot, all the way back to children in Columbine being shot, is that their children are not on the priority list. I've had the opportunity to sit at the doorstep of all the largesse and what they call privilege. When the doors close at 6 p.m. and a dignitary's child is checking in the next day, they change the windows on the buildings, they change the doors on the floor, because that's the best practices for a high-value target. Our children are not high-value targets. That's why our children are being shot. And until we have that honest conversation, everything else is a lie. And so that's what we're focused on, to make sure that we can not just have gun laws that make sense, but also having an infrastructure plan that prioritizes one of the best practices that every single child in this nation deserves.
You're asking about what's going into effect today?
Yes, sir.
It's unconstitutional. Black and white, clear as day. It's going to get thrown out by the courts. Everybody knows that. Supreme Court issued a decision on a case, and the governor calls everyone back to the state legislature for a special session. You know, she's not calling a special session for the rape that just took place in Buffalo. She's not calling a special session for the smash and grab or the gunfire or any other crimes that we see with numbers rising here in Rochester. When the legislature woke up that Friday morning of that special session, there was no bill. By that afternoon, there was a bill signing. Going even further to trample all over First Amendment rights, to trample all over Second Amendment rights. For New Yorkers who are law-abiding citizens who want to safely and securely carry a firearm solely for self-defense, they should not be targeted by government. If you have crimes that are committed by people who are carrying illegal firearms, committing crime after crime after crime, and because of the system, they're still out on the streets committing more offenses and hurting more people, well, I believe that that is what we need to be going after. And also for this governor who seems to think that there is no other crime that is taking place other than a crime in her head that's being committed by some law-abiding citizen who wants to safely and securely carry a firearm for self-defense. A really bizarre leap. You look around the state at all of the other crime that's being committed. If you go talk to the Asian American community in New York City, for example, they'll talk to you about one of their own being pushed in front of an oncoming subway car, or stabbed to death in their apartment in Lower Manhattan, or beaten to death on the streets with a hammer. Go around Rochester and take inventory of all the crimes with knives, with hands, not with guns. If you want to have a conversation about guns, we can have a conversation, but stop ignoring the fact, the reality, that there are all other types of victims in this state. It will go to the courts, it will be ruled unconstitutional. In the meantime, we're ignoring the reality that there's a surge in application for concealed carry permits right now, and the reason is because New Yorkers feel less safe under Kathy Hochul. It's time for her to do some self-reflection, realize why that is, and do something about it.
What's the timetable you think would be for legal action in your opinion?
There are many lawsuits that have been brought. This is something where hopefully over the course of the next few weeks and months, not years, you'll see action by the justice system, by the judicial system. I believe that the courts absolutely will rule that many aspects of this law are unconstitutional. It's obvious. It goes even further than the law that was ruled unconstitutional 1 week earlier by the United States Supreme Court.
Are you surprised that there wasn't an injunction issued?
Well, there was one decision, preliminary decision that was made yesterday. On the merits, the judge is making it clear that there are huge constitutional issues with the law. As far as how a suit is brought, who's bringing a suit, when a suit's brought, where it's brought, that all matters too for a court to have jurisdiction to be able to make a decision on a case. And that's just one of many different cases. The biggest takeaway, if you were to just look at the one preliminary decision from yesterday, is that judge is making it clear that this was unconstitutional what the state legislature and Governor Hochul did.
On September 1st, do any of these gun laws make anyone in New York safer?
I'm concerned that there are all sorts of different locations where we are going to, over the course of the weeks, the months, the years that are ahead, let's just say the laws stay in place as is. You're going to have areas where crimes are going to get committed, but if that law wasn't in place, the business owner who previously was allowed to carry would have been able to defend themselves. Kathy Hochul is saying that these entire areas, that business owner who has a security need is choosing to carry solely to protect themselves. Kathy Hochul's disarming them. Law-abiding New Yorker. If a crime is committed then at that place of employment, because it's located in some area that Kathy Hochul has declared that business owner can't carry, that's on her. And I guarantee you, I am 100% sure that we will be having conversations in the future where crimes will have been committed, where that law stood in the way of that person being able to defend themselves. A decision that they want to make today, a decision that they've made in the past. But government didn't protect them. Government disarmed them. We have to view it very differently between a law-abiding New Yorker who wants to safely and securely carry a firearm solely for self-defense and somebody who's carrying an illegal firearm, committing crime after crime after crime, and the system still has them on the streets. Now, irony alert, when we say we need to repeal cashless bail, Kathy Hochul says there's no data, even though there is. That week, when these new laws were passed, a member of the media asked Kathy Hochul, what data do you have to support going after concealed carry permit holders? Kathy Hochul's answer was, she doesn't need data because she's the governor. You know, the governor who demands that New Yorkers be her apostles? That governor. The same Governor Hochul who refers to herself as the mother of all 62 counties? That Governor Hochul. The same Governor Hochul who every 30 days unilaterally extends her self-claimed COVID emergency powers, and then with that power goes around the state's competitive bidding laws to give out no-bid contracts to her top campaign donors worth many hundreds of millions of dollars? Yeah, that Kathy Hochul. That's the same Kathy Hochul who is telling a law-abiding New York woman who's trying to run a small business, who feels like they need it to carry just in case. And that's the sole reason why they want to carry. Governor Hochul says, no, you are hereby disarmed, and if you continue to carry to try to protect yourself, you are a criminal. You have broke the law. You have to go to jail. And all that person wants to do is protect themselves.
If My last question is, what concealed carry laws look like when you're governor?
Well, listen, the first thing is the question of the judicial suits that have been brought. We'll see what the law is in January of 2023. I believe that what was passed was unconstitutional because it was. When we get to January 1st of 2023, when we are getting sworn in, the law that it is today won't be the same. As to what the law in New York will be in January will be dependent on what the judicial system chooses with regards to these suits that are before it.
I think also to your point, the question has to be asked, which crime that prompted the law would be prevented from the law that you just passed? Would the children in Uvalde still be alive if the laws that Kathy Hochul wants to put on all of us were on the books? The answer is they would not be. If you're talking about the tragedy that happened up the road in Buffalo, where the oldest hate in the history of the world came and paid us all an ugly reminder, would those people still be alive if the laws that Kathy Hochul put on the books were in place? The answer is they would not be, because we are talking about criminals. We are talking about people that do not follow the law. And so this must be our priority. Perhaps we're asking the wrong question. If you can wake up in the morning and a law does not exist, and by 5 p.m. you are passing pens to celebrate a bill signing, then where is the responsiveness for the literacy crisis that drives the poverty, that drives the crime? Where is the responsiveness for the fact that in places like New York City, over the last 18 months, sexual assault is up over 300%? We clearly now can see that government can act when they want to act. The problem is that the impetus for the action is not what's good for the people, but what helps them get votes on election day. And so, yes, I am completely sure that Kathy Hochul and Chuck Schumer want to talk about gun issues. She wants you to forget the fact that she was once Annie Oakley herself, proud receiver of NRA support herself, because Kathy Hochul will tell you she is whoever she thinks you want her to be. We are here to tell you what you need to know. And what you need to know is that you are no longer safe, because the needs of the criminal have been elevated over their responsibility to the common man. And so that's why we're here today, out in front of this TOPS. That's why we're grateful to the media for coming here to cover us. You'd be surprised how many times they don't want to cover us. But thank you so much for what you do to help inform people that these career politicians are not entitled to represent you. Lee Zeldin has a vision for this state. Listen to it. Alison Esposito has a legacy of work in the communities that need our assistance the most. Heed those warnings. And I can tell you that as someone who has worked in the poorest congressional district in the nation, in the Southwest Bronx, raised in Yonkers, who has come face to face with the pernicious face of poverty, the crime that drives all of the pain. A new day is here. New servants are here to do what's required. We ask for your support. Thank you so much.
I think it's important to note that there are two separate and distinct gun carriers. There are two groups. One is the legal, lawful gun owner with a carry permit, and the other is the criminal who's carrying an illegal firearm to shoot, to rob, to inflict pain. Now, these past couple of days, we've seen even through Times Square, trucks driving around with billboards saying this is a gun-free zone. You're not allowed to carry here. My question to Kathy Hochul is, which group of individuals is going to listen to that? Which group of individuals that I just laid out are going to see those signs and say, oh, I can't carry my gun here. Kathy Hochul says I can. So I'm pretty sure that the crime that happened over my shoulder is illegal, right? The last time I checked. I think smash and grab robberies are illegal. I guess they should have listened to that. They didn't. Why? Because criminals don't listen to laws. They don't read and heed laws. Only the legal, lawful, law-abiding gun owners, they're the ones who suffer for this. And if you're talking about a retired cop, well, how are you going to stop the bad guy with a gun without the good guy with a gun? these laws they quote as common sense gun safety. It's not what they are. That's not what they are. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.